the Core Cast.
Welcome to Shoot the Corecast, the official companion podcast to the RF Generation Shmup Club. This is a family-friendly shmup-themed podcast that enjoys our coffee with Pocky and our music a little rocky. I'm Addicted, also known as Addicted to Shmups, and with me as always,
MetalFRO, also known as Game Boy Guru. And if you would like to connect with us, you can do so in a number of ways. Follow us on Twitter or X at ShootCorecast. Follow me directly there at Game Boy Guru. We are also on Blue Sky as Shoot the Corecast. Check our Linktree page for links to all of our feeds and socials and everything else. linktr.ee/shootthecorecast. And you can also find there a link to our Discord server, which I highly encourage you to join so that you can play along with us, talk shmups and gaming in general. We've got a lot of lively conversation going on in there, and the server has actually become quite busy over the last few months, and so really happy with the community that we have built. Also,
excellent.
Feel free to follow me on Twitch, where you can see me stream the Shmup Club Game of the Month multiple times throughout the month. That is twitch.tv/GuruGameBoy. And now that we are in January, even though we're kind of playing catch up with podcasts because we got a little bit behind, so we're a couple of episodes in arrears on recording. But since we're in January, I decided we're going to go ahead and shift our focus for the Focus Shot discussion from Espagaluda, which was our 2024 game, to Rolling Gunner. And I don't expect us to have a lot of conversation right up front, but I wanted to mention it because I've already played a little bit, and just, the last couple three days, I put a little bit of time in, and I managed to already clear novice mode with, I think, the default ship. It's the one that has the straightforward rolling gunner. I did that on my second try, which I was very pleased about, because I think if you compare the novice mode in rolling gunner to the super easy modes, for example, that M2 ports typically have, it definitely is a step up from that. It's not a super difficult mode, but I would say it's not a pushover either. And so I felt good about that. And then I was playing earlier on casual mode, which is, again, a step up from novice. So it's kind of in between novice and original or arcade mode. And I managed to get to stage 6 on both runs. I did one run with the main default ship, and then one with the other ship that has the much bigger spread from the gunner. And that I did okay. I mean, the first one, I got to the mid-boss in stage 6, and then the second run, I didn't quite get as far, but my scoring was slightly better. And so, it's like the novice mode, you get auto bombs when you take a hit, and unlike the regular arcade or original difficulty, it only uses one bomb per auto bomb, so it's not quite as punitive. But the stage 5 boss in casual is definitely going to take some routing and some planning. That is going to be a run killer for sure. But I'm surprised at how quickly I'm already progressing in that, and I guess that's probably a bit of a testament to A, the amount of resources the game throws at you, but also B, the fact that spending all year playing Espagaluda 2 and just really grinding away at it, I feel like it has increased my skill set. So I'm pretty pleased with that. Have you put any time into this yet?
Yeah, I played a little bit. I am just trying to catch up right now. I've got so many games going on right now, but I played a little bit of Rolling Gunner Overpowered, and I think I got up to stage 4 so far. I definitely really appreciate the gameplay, especially with the twin stick. I like the ability to be able to cancel bullets upon whatever field of view I want to choose. And I haven't come up to anything that's unfair. Definitely some challenging moments. I know that dealing with the, stage 3 airship, there's some portions of that can be a little tricky as everything's firing at you at once. But overall, I'm definitely been enjoying my time. Now, I don't have anything much really specific to talk about just yet, other than to say that so far it seems to be a really well put together game. And I think that this is one of the rare cases where the DLC really adds to the game.
Yeah. I really need to get into Overpower at some point. I've still only played the original mode, or the original game version. Although this is my first time messing with casual mode, but it strikes me coming back to this game now after several years, because if you recall, I bought the PC DVD version of this game in 2018 when we started the podcast, and I remember playing it on my laptop, sitting in my game room at my apartment at the time, and playing the game little bits here and there before we would start recording the podcast.
Well,
and of course,
I think it's a little bit of a testament to how long you've had it and how long you've been playing it by the fact that the media that the game came on, they expect you to have a disk drive for your computer.
Right. Well, and it strikes me that even though we're years later, the game has been patched a little bit, but the core fundamental design of the game I already think is quite good. And the stage 4 music is my jam. That track is straight fire, as the kids would say, and I really dig the sort of, I'm not going to call it techno, but the sort of upbeat electronic music style mixed with a kind of city pop melodic vibe. Really digging that. One thing I'll say about the visuals, the needle bullets are definitely going to be a problem for me. Because they are rather thin, and because the graphics have that higher fidelity look to them, and it's not just pixel art, they are definitely a little bit harder to see and track than I would say the needle bullets in a cave game, for example, that tend to be a little bit wider and stand out a little bit more against the background. And so I know those are going to be a problem for me.
But you're playing on like a 50-inch OLED, right? 50, 60, something?
Yeah,
under 2-inch OLED?
It's a 65-inch OLED, but I've been playing in windowed mode so far. I probably should switch to full screen just so that everything's a little bit easier to see, but I kind of wanted to start there to kind of build a baseline. So anyway.
That would make sense why you're having a little bit more of a problem than I am distinguishing. Because the way that I'm playing right now is on Steam with a 24-inch monitor, like almost right at my face. So for me, I don't have the problem of distinguishing between bullets. I mean, maybe I will be a couple years from now. Who knows? Maybe I'll have trouble just distinguishing what the bullets are at all. But then I'll start asking for tips for geriatric John Mako here for how to proceed. But I think for at least on the PC side and playing on a PC monitor up close, it's pretty easy to distinguish. That said, I could see if you're playing on a large screen how it could become hard to, or how they could be lost within the visual style or the visual noise.
Right. And I think given how far my TV is away from my couch, it's probably not going to be that dissimilar if I'm playing in full screen to you sitting near a 24-inch monitor. But you'll probably have the advantage in that respect because you'll still be closer to the action and all of that. And so, anyway,
we'll hook it up to a Star Wars battle pod for you. Just make really give you motion sickness as you play.
Oh, that would be horrible. But I'm looking forward to see how this unfolds over the year. I mean, I'm really hoping that I can bag at least one casual clear without a whole ton of effort, and then maybe move on to overpower for a little bit so I can play with that, get a feel for that version, and get a couple of clears in that, and then use that as some ability to build up some muscle memory and also just continue to learn the levels, and then come back to original and see about what it's going to take to get that clear.
I also am thankful that it's not a cave game. I don't have anything against cave game, but when we've done quite a bit of cave games so far, and when it's sort of like eating a cheeseburger followed by cheeseburger followed by cheeseburger, at some point the cheeseburger starts losing its specialness.
Right.
So to have a nice variety of Tex-Mexium is definitely good, and something. It's also horizontal, which I'm trying to think. Were all our games so far vert or tate?
All of our focus shot games have been vertical. Yeah. So this is the first horizontal. And the funny thing is, we've done a horizontal cave game before because we covered Death Smiles, but we haven't covered Pro Gear or Akai Katana yet. And the interesting thing is, the developer or the designer who is kind of the main person behind Rolling Gunner, as far as I'm aware, worked at Cave and had some involvement with both Akai Katana and I think Pro Gear. If not Pro Gear, then Death Smiles. I'd have to look that up. I don't remember 100%. But so it is kind of amusing that the first focus shot Danmaku that we're doing has cave DNA, but it's not actually a cave game.
Yeah, well, as I said, it's good to have variety and to do something different. And this game definitely has the chops to go against a commercial release, right? Just because it is a doujin doesn't mean that it is any less.
Right.
The other thing I'm wondering is here, we've got Rolling Gunner and we've got Blue Sky. How many references to Daytona are we going to make in this podcast?
Quite a few in 2025, I imagine.
I imagine so, too. All right, so shall we move on to the news that you can use?
Indeed.
All right, Taito has posted a survey on their Japanese site asking for requests for future games to the Egret 2 Mini and future arcade memories SD card expansions. Well, I think everybody wants Raw Stand 2, right? That's what all they're clamoring for.
Yeah, if they do, they should ask for their money back.
So spoiler alert, I ended up getting a Evercade Blaze Pocket, the Taito Memories one, and that was one of the games there. My oldest was asking me, "What about this game?" I said, "No, don't just skip it. Play Space Invaders."
I have nostalgia for that game because that cabinet sat in the bowling alley in my hometown, right next to the R-Type 2 cab, which was right next to the Snow Brothers cab. And so I put a decent amount of money into Nastar Warrior, as it was called. But I know objectively it's got a lot of issues. And so while I while I still have a fondness for it, I know that it's kind of hot trash.
Yeah, but with a name like Nastar Warrior, you sort of evoke like a He-Man bootleg, right?
Right.
It's the GoBots.
Yeah, it's the Thundar the Barbarian to He-Man. Although
There you go.
I quite like Thundar, so
Someone's gonna furiously type me up somewhere right now. Thundar the Barbarian is great. You don't know the backstory of all the characters. Learn the lore. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh boy. All right.
Several of the Neo Geo titles released through Hamster's Arcade Archives line are being repackaged together in 4 physical release volumes. The compilations aren't themed, however, so if you want the shmups, you'll have to grab all 4. Volume 1 it will include Alpha Mission 2 and Shock Troopers. Volume 2 has Shock Troopers Second Squad and Ghost Pilots. Volume 3 will include Blazing Star and Last Resort. And then Volume 4 will include Pulstar and Metal Slug.
I gotta wonder at this point, how many compilations have I bought that actually have the original Metal Slug on it?
That's a good question.
I mean, it's got to be more than 3 or 4.
Probably. I mean, I own the Metal Slug anthology on Wii and PSP at a minimum.
Yep, and then there's a PS2 release.
Yep.
And then there's that one that came up for the Wii, which I think, correct me, I could be wrong on this, but it was the SNK Arcade Classics. Like one of the only ones that actually has Magician Lord on it.
Yeah. And that came out on the PSP as well. And I think I'd have to double check. Both of those might have Metal Slug.
It's certainly a lot. I mean, it's not like Nintendo where everything seems to come with a copy of Mario Brothers, but it's still quite a bit.
Yeah.
Trigger Heart Excelia Enhanced is set for an April 24th, 2025 release on Switch. So get ready to spin it to win it this April.
Yeah. And this is the one that's going to be a port, if you will, or basically a redo of what was the PS2 version of the game. And so there'll be 2 versions floating out there, the updated arcade release and then this enhanced port. Osiabari Horijo Gekihori is supposed to be getting a Switch physical through First Press Games.
Well,
I guess
first of all, I'm
I'll
thankful
believe it
that
when
you
I
said
see
it. I should say, first of all, I'm thankful that you said that one, not me. And second of all, I can't remember what the heck this game is.
This is a horizontal, I guess you would call it a cute 'em up Danmaku of sorts. It's not all that bullet hell, but
Okay.
I guess it's supposed to be an easier game in terms of just challenge, but the skill ceiling for it is the scoring, because I remember Ed streaming this a bunch because he enjoyed it. You've got this girl character in this spacesuit, and she flies around, and you fly through these sections where it's like she's mining, and you clear out earth or dirt or whatever, rock, in order to uncover this ore. And then as you uncover more ore and sort of level up, kind of like medaling in a Rising game or something like that, you of course increase your score and continue to increase the value of the ore itself, the different levels. And so it is kind of a charming little game.
It's a shmup Mr. Driller.
Kind of, yeah. But I've been hoping that someone would do a physical for this, because I think, if I remember correctly, at one point the game was delisted somewhere. Now it came back, but at one point the game was delisted, or there was rumor that it was going to be delisted. And so obviously we want physicals of these kinds of things so this stuff can be preserved. I don't think this is on PC at all. I believe the only platform it's on, if I'm thinking correctly, is the Switch.
You know what you do on this case? I'm watching a little bit of gameplay here, and she's attacking a giant watermelon that's spinning around with a. And I think if we just call this Fruit Ninja 2, it will sell millions of copies, and we don't have to worry about it.
But I would like to see the physical get released. So I'm still waiting on my copy of Neko Navy. I'm still waiting on my copies of the Ginga Force and Natsuki Chronicles special editions, and I'm still waiting on my physical of Crimson Clover World Explosion.
You know what I think we should do for your stream? We should get you like a countdown. It's been so many days since I ordered Neko Navy.
Well, I was doing some figuring on that a couple of weeks ago, and I put it in the Discord because we had some conversation in the Discord about this when this came up. So in the Shmup News discussion channel, we were talking about this, and it's been, I want to say I ordered Neko Navy in 2019. So, I mean, it's ridiculous. I don't know. First Press Games continues to exist somehow. They must be selling just enough to keep the doors open, but I don't know. At this point, I'm not going to hold my breath, but I am hoping that it does eventually come to fruition, at which point I would be happy to throw more money at them, but I'm just not real keen on doing that right now while they still have, a good couple of $100 worth of my money just sitting there doing nothing.
Yeah, you could be putting that into Roth IRA, or you can be putting that into a rainy day shmup fund.
Exactly.
Yep. All right, so here we go. You're going to make me say this now. Is it Karos?
I believe it's Karos, yeah.
All right. With the successful crowdfunding for a Carlos sequel. Just want to see you're paying attention on that one. All right. With the successful crowdfunding with a Karos sequel, they're also releasing physical CD soundtracks for Karos and Karos, the best of Re-Eden as a set.
Yeah.
That sounds good to me.
It's the beat of Re-Eden, but that's all right. Yeah,
That's
I believe the what I've seen, the romanization of the name in Japanese, it just writes it out as Karasu. So, that's close enough. Karos, that's how I've always pronounced it.
I've gotten to the point where my Japanese pronunciation, people are just used to it, and they're just like, oh, there's Addicted then talking about his quesadilla.
Make yourself a dang quesadilla. Well, it's like the song says, just wave your hands in the air. Pronounce Japanese like Addicted, like you just don't care.
Yep. I'm sure someone's got Addicted to Japanese to Addicted dictionary somewhere around here.
There you go. This is cool, though. I mean, Karos is probably the milestone game I've spent the least amount of time with. I've definitely played more Chaos Field and more Radargy. Well, no, I take that back. I've spent the least amount of time with El Velo because I never got to play it. And so Karos is the one I've spent the least time with on the Ultimate Shooting Collection on the Wii. But it is cool that the soundtracks are coming out. So I might have to grab that because I'm a sucker for those. Radalaika Games has announced that the obscure Game Gear tank shooter Griffin will be coming to modern consoles and PC, complete with English translation. No date is announced yet. This was a pleasant little surprise. I remember playing Griffin way back in the late 90s Halcyon days of early emulation, and as I was discovering Power Strike 2, aka GGLS 2, I also discovered Griffin, and it was another one of those games that I thought is pretty impressive for the hardware. Not GGLS 2 impressive, but it's doing some cool things.
Yeah, the Game Gear continues to surprise me with some of the stuff that it can do when you can actually get it to last and power on for more than half an hour.
Yeah, exactly.
I still, I've got my Game Gear accessory bag in here, and it comes with this just, it's almost comically like a ColecoVision size power adapter in order to actually power the thing instead of eating up batteries every 30 minutes.
Oh yeah.
And it's all because they had to use the backlight that they used on there. It just really ate through the batteries. Very cool technology for its time.
Yep.
So we are here in 2025, and we have a native PC port of Star Fox 64 barrel rolling in.
Yeah. I haven't messed with this yet. I haven't even downloaded it yet, but it's pretty cool that these native ports of N64 games continue to come out. So I look forward to, at some point, messing around with this one.
You might want to get it sooner than later, too, because after the Nintendo's Ninjas deal with all the Switch 2 leaks, they might be coming for that next.
They might, yeah. Atlassian Madness is a bullet hell fan game of Brock the Investigator. It's free to download from Climax Games on the Game Jolt website and is a 16:9 vertical game. I am not familiar with Brock the Investigator.
I picture an alligator dressed up like Sherlock Holmes when I hear that.
Yeah, it is an alligator character, but
okay.
I just don't know much about it. But that crossed my feed, and so I decided to mention it.
He's part of the Croc universe now. All right. Kevin Monitor has released a demo for Tyrannus Starlit Reverie on itch.io. It's still early in development, but it's a vertical Danmaku with some mecha anime aesthetic.
Yeah.
I'll have to take a look at this one.
I've heard that this is actually pretty good. I saw some discussion on one of the other Discords, either Shmup Junkies or STG Rev 2020, and there were some folks there who were saying that it was pretty good. Project X Light Years is an official spiritual sequel to the classic Amiga horizontal shooter from the 90s. It is being done by a different developer than the original, but is in cooperation with Team 17. And in sad related news, Team 17 co-founder Martin Brown recently passed away after experiencing a series of strokes. And so, yeah, it's very sad to hear.
It definitely is. My condolences. Taking a look at this Tyrannus, and it looks pretty good. It almost reminds me of... The sprites are a lot bigger than this. It almost looks like a Milestone game with the aesthetic. But it really got a lot going on here. Yeah, I'll have to give this one a shot. Darn it, just when I thought it was safe to start up a game. Here's 20 more.
Yeah.
The release of Super Dimension Fortress Macross arcade game on our Arcade Archives will be Japanese only. And I'm certain people are already cursing at Harmony Gold.
Right. Yes, always with the licensing stuff. This was one that I thought was pretty cool when I read it. Frank Cifaldi recently shared some prototypes with The Hidden Palace, among them being an unreleased Capcom shooter called Titan Warriors. It was supposed to have served as a sequel to Vulgus, their very first game, which also happened to be a shmup. I'm definitely going to have to grab this and throw that on the mister.
Yeah. Especially since you can, well, when they're in stock, you can get Mister pretty cheap these days.
Right.
All right, here we go. Space Mambo, the legendary Konami shooter on the MSX2 platform, is available now on the Egg console service on Nintendo Switch.
Yeah.
Please understand and buy.
I forgot to buy this the other day when I went and bought something else on there. But yeah, this is going to be a buy. What a classic.
Yeah. Now you just need to tell them release Rekka.
Oh man, yeah.
You don't want people all the time were saying play Freebird. We just need to make a battle cry release Rekka.
There you go. Nebula Sweep is a free-to-play shooting game from the Free Game Mugen website. In it, you control an Arkanoid-style paddle that you move back and forth at the center of the screen, and you can shoot either above or below your craft to take on incoming enemies.
So this, I mean, in Arkanoid you could definitely do that, right? Once you had the laser, you could shoot, well, above at least.
Right.
So this is similar to that. Do you need a spinner style? Will it work with the spinner controller for the Mister?
I don't know. Maybe?
Either that, or you could just take a trackball upside down on one of those old mouse and just spin it to win it.
Yeah, that's true.
There's also a huge trackball that Microsoft made for kids a long, long time ago. I think in like early 2000s. I'm not sure if it's PS2. I wonder if you could modify that and become a because there were numerous arcade games that use that, but I wonder if there was one that a bowling game of all things that ended up having a Windows XP Plus release.
Oh.
It was actually an arcade game that you can go to Dave and Buster's, but it had a Windows XP release that you got the Plus expansion packet, and I wonder, it was like rolling a giant trackball, and I wonder if that type of stuff would make it come. They definitely did for the rotary sticks, right? You can buy arcade sticks now that are for your Mister or whatever have you, that are the actual 8-way rotary sticks for your SNK games. So it wouldn't surprise me if someone comes up with a giant trackball controller.
Sure. Yeah.
The developer behind Spolos posted an update that Spolos 2 development continues. Well, the hope was to be released in 2024. The game isn't finished quite yet.
Yeah, and for those unfamiliar, Spolos is a pretty much a Gradius-inspired game. Very, very Gradius in look and feel. And I still haven't downloaded the original yet, but I've heard it's good, and the second one is looking really, really good. Kanzaki Shintaro is working on a new horizontal Danmaku game. 2 stages are completed so far, and it has a very dark, atmospheric look to it. Reportedly, the game is designed to be fairly difficult.
The full version of Astro Brinner has released on Steam. This is a sequel to Akashiverse from developer Endless Shirufu. And once again, I butcher those, so I apologize. I think this is the one that I was going to play and try out, but ran out of time. Let me see if... Yes, this is the one.
Huh.
I will give it a shot. I've just... There are so many games I'm trying to get through here, and I will try and at least report back what I think of this game, but by the time we play, I will do my best. But I do have this game. I just haven't a chance to play. Between playing with Rolling Gunner, and then every time I fire up Rolling Gunner, it also pops up with Devil Blade. I'm like, oh, I should really play some more Devil Blade. I don't know what it is about Devil Blade, but I keep going back to that darn game.
Huh. Nice.
So next time we talk, I'll talk about it.
Okay. Sakamoto Dangerous Barrage from Retsu Teikoku is listed as coming soon on Steam. It's a horizontal Danmaku game that appears to have a twin stick element and also a system based on momentarily stopping time to clear large bullet swarms. No release date is set. This has a bit of a whimsical look to it.
M2 posted a video on their YouTube channel right at the end of 2024 teasing their lineup for 2025. In addition to the previously announced Night Stalker gear and Operation Night Stalker releases, they featured Aleste Branch, so hopefully that means the game will release in 2025. They also highlighted their previous DDP DOJ release. No mention of the next release in Toplan Arcade Garage series.
Yeah. There was some talk in our Discord server about whether or not the Embracer Group deal with Tatsujin means that M2 is no longer going to do Toplan releases. But unless the Embracer deal somehow nullified M2's agreement with the Tatsujin company, I'm guessing it's just gonna, they're just trying to juggle all their projects to get them all done. So hopefully that'll be the case. A fairly exciting recent development is that the developer behind Chorensha 68K ported the 1.10 release to Windows, and that has now been made available for free. If you recall, this is last year at least. Maybe the year before. I don't remember exactly when it happened, but the developer out of nowhere dropped version 1.10 of the original Sharp 68K release of the game. And players were all excited for that and really digging that. But then there was no word on whether or not this would ever make it to Windows. So this was a real pleasant surprise to see this just kind of get shadow dropped. And then the Shmup Underground group kind of went, "Ooh, look at that." So, Jamers has already gone and done a clear of it, and posted that on YouTube, and there's definitely been some talk about it.
Very nice. Really quickly, don't want to get too off topic here, but the limited run currently has a Psikyo Shooting Library Volume 1 for the PS4 on sale for $26.
Oh, nice.
And the other is $30, so not too bad. Anyways, new Danmaku shooter in its development for the Amiga platform, specifically the Amiga 1200 and above, tentatively known as Hyperborea. Oh, Hyperborea.
Yep.
Hyperbole. Alright, it looks like it's inspired by Dodonpachi and has both a standard and focus shot. It already looks fairly impressive. Nice. The Amiga 1200 is a fairly available computer and pretty well emulated, or it's something that you can fire up on Mister as well, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Red Art Games has announced the latest shmup release, this time for 1917, The Alien Invasion DX Remastered. Say that 5 times fast. Slated for physical and digital release on PS5. The game did receive a digital release on Switch. And Video Games Plus does have a standard PS5 version available for anyone who doesn't want the extra items included in the Red Art Games edition.
So is this sort of like a prequel to Aliens? Maybe 1979 Alien? Which one is this?
This is an indie shmup. It's been out on Steam for a while.
You're not playing Sigourney Weaver taking down the aliens?
Not that I know of.
Well, that's alright. I'll give it a shot. NG Dev Team has announced a final, quotation marks, reprint of the Gunbird Collector's Edition release. Pre-orders are open January 11th at 10 p.m. CET. Yeah, I didn't think that they would do another reprint of Gunbird. That's surprising.
Well, I'm guessing they've just had enough demand that they felt it was going to be feasible to do so.
That reminds me, every time I look at their stuff, it's just like they're printing money because the stuff shoots up in price so quickly.
Right. Yeah, you have to wonder sometimes if some of these companies either hold back a handful of copies or they print a few extra copies or something so that then when the main run sells out, they can throw a few on eBay and make 2, 3, 4 times the original retail price off a few copies of the game.
Yeah. I mean, it looks like it's not too bad right now because we have, well, price charting's got some weird things going on here. It says that a loose version of Gunbird will cost you $111. The complete in-box version will cost you $161, but the new copy will cost you $123. Go figure that one out.
Yeah.
But at least the limited edition is around $140, which, when it comes to shmups, it's not too bad. Yes, it is expensive, but I mean, you're not going after Aero Fighters for the Super Nintendo or something like that here. So
True.
It's at least within semi-reasonable.
Right. You'll be able to afford a copy of Gunvane's limited edition before you'll be able to afford a copy of Zombie Nation.
True enough. All right. So let's move on to the game that we played in November 2024. Of course, as we're saying this in January 2025, I'm sorry for the delay, everybody. So we are catching up and we are pushing this out as fast as we can for your entertainment. So please understand. And thank you. So the people that played with us in November were Desolus, Ihaz, Master Who, Eat Electric Death, Skosh, Mr. Vastille, and is it Super Oven? I'm sure there's a good story behind that one.
Yeah, that's how I read it.
Yeah. Super Oven must be the final form of Easy Bake Oven.
There you go. These aren't even my final cupcakes.
I'm sure there's someone out there thinking, Easy Bake Oven shmup. As you gather more parts, you can bake better stuff. You start out with cupcakes, you upgrade to bread. Let's just keep on going here.
Yep, and then at some point you get a pancake spread shot.
There we go. Bring back the flying pancake. So let's talk about Pocky and Rocky Reshrined here. The Pocky and Rocky series began as a spiritual successor to Japan-only arcade title Kiki Kakai, developed and released by Taito. Taito licensed the property to Natsumi in the 1990s, who created 2 Pocky and Rocky games on the Super Nintendo, and then, well, we'll talk about them in a second. The first title released in 1992 and the second in 1994. Pocky and Rocky Reshrined is sort of a little bit of a remix of the Pocky and Rocky sequel, or the first Pocky and Rocky on the Super Nintendo. A third game in the series, Pocky and Rocky with Becky, was developed by another studio, Altron. This was released on the Game Boy Advance in 2001-2002. Another game was planned for release on Pocky Rocky title in PS2 in development by Starfish SD, but was canceled in 2007 after Taito pulled the licensing. This game was later reworked and released as original game Kiki Kaikai World, released for the Wii and PS2 in 2008 as Heavenly Guardian in North America and Legend of Sayuki in Europe. This has been subsequently re-released as Snow Battle Princess Sayuki for modern platforms. This game, for a while, it was everywhere. I remember like the Wii version, the PS2 version was a little bit harder, but the Wii version was like $8 for a long, long time.
Yep.
Not sure if it still is. 2002 saw the release of this entry, Kiki Kaikai Kuromanto no Nazu, or The Mystery of Black Mantle. This was translated version came to the West as Pocky and Rocky Reshrined. It was developed by Tango Project, and I apologize for this one, but I keep wanting to call them Tango Works.
Huh.
It's been driving me nuts, but no, it's Tango Project and published by Natsume Atari. Other Tango Project releases include the recently released Kage Shadow the Ninja and the Ninja Sabers, Return of the Warriors, Wild Guns Reloaded, and the Xbox Live Arc shooter Omega 5. Now, the interesting thing about this, the people who do Pocky and Rocky Reshrined were at least some of the development members who created the original Super Nintendo game.
Correct.
And I'll take that for $200, Trebek. No, yes, give me the pen is mightier. All right, so
Anal bum cover.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about this is they start with Natsume. They're making titles, and they really sort of a revival with the Omega 5, which was their first Xbox arcade release, and then start out with the Ninja Saviors as they're working their way through, and Wild Guns Reloaded. But I think with Pocky and Rocky is really where they hit their stride, and you can tell that they feel comfortable and know what they're doing. And we'll talk a little bit more about why this is a little bit later. The physical versions of Pocky and Rocky Reshrined for Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 4 were both produced by Strictly Limited Games and Einen Games, as well as a standard North American physical release for Natsume themselves. Really quickly, just talking about the Switch and the PS4 release, there is a little bit of slowdown with the Switch release, but it still plays pretty well. It's definitely serviceable. But the PS4 version or the PC port is really where you want to go at with this game, because they don't have stutter or slowdown. So, after the events of the first Pocky and Rocky game, Black Mantle traveled back in time to get revenge. He once again confused the monsters or yokai and caused them to attack the nearby areas. No, he did not use a watch. Different series. After an encounter with Pocky and Rocky, Black Mantle attacked them. Pocky shielded Rocky from an attack and collapsed. She later woke up in the land of the Kami, created by Ame no Yuzumi, a goddess from Kami. Pocky's soul was separated from her body and ended up there to assist Pocky in getting home and returning to her body. Uzumi allows Pocky to join her soul with Uzumi's body so she can find Black Mantle in the underworld and defeat him. Yeah, and the interesting thing about this is sort of almost like the first Pocky and Rocky for Super Nintendo remix. You get the first two stages are almost identical to the original Super Nintendo or Super Famicom game, and then it starts breaking out from there. I have to say, as we're right about to the gameplay section, that this is one where I own the first Pocky and Rocky. One of my luckiest when I was able to find it for like $8 to $10 back before anyone knew what the heck it was. But I haven't put in more than maybe 30 minutes playing. So when I first started up the game, I had a very much a why can't Metroid crawl moment. It's like, why can't I play this twin stick? What's going on here? Why can't I? But when the more I played it, the more comfortable it felt with the controls. And I'm certain you'll talk a little bit about that with the different control and some of the stuff that's been added, like the tapping versus to get a different type of attack versus holding on the button.
Right.
But if you're gonna go get one of these Taito releases and you're gonna say, hey, give me the best thing that's out of here, I would have to say that go for Pocky and Rocky Reshrined over Ninja Warriors and Wild Gun. This is the one where you can tell it was they had the prowess, they knew what they were doing, and every little detail on this, and we'll talk about more in the display, but numerous things impressed me with this game.
Yeah. Now, in terms of gameplay, in Pocky and Rocky Reshrined, as with the previous titles, you have two primary modes of attack. You have a standard shot type, and then you have a melee attack. The melee can deflect some bullet types or some projectiles, as well as damaging some enemy types that cannot be destroyed using a regular attack. In particular, the ghost enemies. Enemy projectiles that are deflected with the melee will be sent back toward the enemies to do damage to them. Each character also has a bomb-style attack or a special that will do big damage and clear bullets, but of course, as with most games, these are limited in supply. Every character also has an evade ability where you can do a quick dash move in the direction that you're facing to get out of danger. The standard shot has a button set with auto fire, while the melee attack does not. Now, both attacks have a secondary function once unlocked in story mode or available fully in free mode. For the main shot, if you rapidly tap that button instead of pressing and holding it, you'll activate the secondary effect. And then for the melee button, it's the opposite. You'll press and hold the melee button for a couple, 3 seconds, and then that will trigger the secondary effect for that. And this differs between the different characters. The game starts out with only the story mode available. And this is something that there was definitely some discussion about in the Discord, and I think a little bit of grumbling about it. And definitely something that I know was a point of contention when the game first released. In order to unlock the free mode, where you can tackle the whole game in a single arcade-style setting, you either have to beat the story mode or collect 10,000 coins within the game during the course of play. Now, I will say, I found this out on stream. You don't have to 1cc the story mode. You just have to get through it. So if you can just keep spamming continues and trying again until you get through the story mode. But once you do, then that's when you get the free mode unlocked.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't also two-player mode locked behind coins as well?
Yes, two-player mode is locked behind either coins or beating the story mode.
And that to me is the biggest sort of slap in the face for this game. They should have allowed you to do two-player, especially when the gameplay is almost built around this, right? They want you to... Local co-op is rarity in these games, but if you're going to evoke the spirit of this game, you should at least allow for local co-op. I get different modes being locked behind it to give players something to shoot for, but you should at least allow 2 players from the start.
Yeah, it is a little weird that you have to force people to go through the story mode to get to the meat of the game, but I guess that's a design choice you can make. Now, in the story mode, you play initially as Pocky, and then Rocky, then a couple of the other characters that are introduced as the story progresses. Each character is specifically chosen for you based on the stage, and a couple of the mechanics that you learn throughout the game aren't available at the very beginning.
And aren't some of the stages you could sort of random on which character you get? Do you get 1 out of 2?
No, it is specific to each stage.
I thought for certain that there was one that was randomness, but maybe I'm getting confused.
Yeah, as far as I can tell, the story mode plays out the same in terms of which character you get for which stage.
Okay. Maybe it's no. I swear that there was some randomness to this, but maybe it could just be me going crazy in my old age.
Sure. And someone feel free to fact check me if I'm off base there, but as far as I'm aware, it's the same.
I also like how quick you were to accept that me going crazy in my old age.
Well, I'm right there with you. Now, Now, once you've beat once you've beaten the story mode, you unlock the free mode, and you can play through all the stages in a single uninterrupted run. This also unlocks the ability to choose 4 of the 5 playable characters right away. Pocky, of course, known as Sayo-chan in the Japanese release, is the titular character and is a Shinto shrine maiden. Her primary attacks are a set of Ofuda thrown out in front of her, which upgrades to a spread pattern, and her melee attack uses a Gohai staff to repel enemies and attacks. Her primary shot special creates a mirror on the ground that gives her a short-term homing attack effect to nearby enemy when she's shooting at the mirror. And her melee charge effect provides a protective barrier around her, which can absorb a few enemy projectiles, but not all, and also damaging enemies that it comes into contact with, which is a very handy technique. Rocky the Tanuki, known as Manuke in the Japanese version, is Pocky's faithful companion and traveling partner. His primary attack is a spread of green leaves that is a green leaf attack that has a spread effect, but they sort of do this thing where they spread out and then come back together after a short distance. The secondary effect for his shot turns him into a stone statue for a few seconds. The movement is very slow and restrictive, so you can't really go very far, but any enemies that come into contact with the statue will be damaged, and you are essentially invulnerable for the short amount of time during that period.
I was sort of thinking, is this a cultural thing, or is this just stolen from Mario 3? I couldn't tell.
I wondered, because, yeah, you get the same effect with the Tanuki suit in Mario 3, so I'm guessing this is some kind of Tanuki mythology. Now, Rocky's melee attack will have him turning around to whip his tail back and forth. And the charge ability for his melee creates a small platform for him to stand on, and then a set of 4 mini Rockies will carry him back and forth, which allows you to hold the fire button down and strafe so that you can continue to fire in the same direction for a little while. Oh, I forgot to mention Pocky's bomb. Her bomb is like a 4-way explosion that goes out from her position. And then Rocky's bomb creates a swirl of leaves around him that sort of fans out across the screen and damages stuff in its path. It also clears enemy projectiles briefly. And of course, I forgot to mention Pocky's other attacks. The other power-up types you can get in the game are sort of a red and green. The red is a fire attack, generally speaking. And then the green is more of a magic attack, I guess. Pocky's red attack gives her fireballs. And then the green attack is this sort of energy shuriken. And that creates a splash damage area of effect when hitting enemies after it's been powered up. For Rocky, the red power-up also gives him fireballs, but they have this cool effect where when they hit a target, they sort of split out and can damage other stuff in the area. And then the green power-up gives him this sort of golden leaf attack. And it moves a little bit slower than the green leaf attack, but the interesting thing is that they can bounce off walls and stuff, and so you kind of get this ricochet effect with his green weapon, which can be advantageous in a few spots. Ikazuchi is a character that it's sort of like Pocky and Rocky mixed together, almost like they were in the machine in The Fly, and then sort of became Procky, if you will.
This episode's got the most references per episode we've ever made.
Right. But Ikazuchi's primary shot as default is a rapid lightning bolt shot that has a little bit of a spread effect as it powers up. As with Rocky, Ikazuchi's melee attack is a tail whip. Secondary effect for the shot creates tiny clones of Ikazuchi, up to 4 at once, similar to Pocky, and they sort of all shoot the little green leaves in the same direction that the character is facing. The charge effect for the melee is a pair of ice pillars that will appear to the left and right of the character, which will block enemy projectiles as well as damage some enemies when they spawn. Ikazuchi's special creates a huge wolf creature that stomps on the ground and then releases a bunch of small whirlwinds in the area around the character to damage enemies and clear projectiles. Now, the red power-up will give Ikazuchi the ability to fire this like flame laser weapon that has a lock-on effect. And so once that contacts an enemy, then as long as you're holding the fire button down, it will continue to damage that enemy so you can move around and not even necessarily be facing that enemy, but still be damaging it from that flame attack. And then the green power-up gives you a series of magic sparks that you can throw out at enemies to damage them. Right away, I gotta say, Ikazuchi with the red power-up is easy mode in this game. That is definitely the most OP combination, and as long as you don't take a bunch of hits and lose the red power-up, that is going to help you get pretty far in the free mode.
Now, that you bring up a point here that I've forgotten, and if memory serves right, in the original Pocky and Rocky game for the Super Nintendo or Super Famicom, the fire and the water power-ups are the only power-ups that are available. The wind one was added to this game, and I believe also the ability to pick up the power-up after you've been hit was also added to this.
Yeah, which is a huge benefit.
Yeah, indeed. And I'm not sure if you also mentioned, but if you grab enough of the power-up, you go into overpowered mode, which allows you to it'll start playing drum, and you go plus ultra on everybody.
Right. Yeah, you go into max power mode. It plays different music, and one of the nice things is during regular gameplay, when you take a hit, like as you said, your power-up pops out, and then you may have the opportunity to collect it again. But if you take a hit during max power mode, you will not power down. And so that's a nice it's like a halfway point between an invincibility and normal play. Uzume no Ame is the goddess from the land of Kami who joins with Pocky to assist her in her quest to defeat Black Mantle. Her shot types are more similar than the other characters. Where she differentiates in that respect is she has a pair of options that go along with her. And those options are what actually fire her shots. And those options will move with the character, and then when the shot button is let go, then the options will reposition depending on the direction you're facing. With her primary weapon, the options start out in front of her and then slightly to the side. And then as she powers up, the primary weapon has a bit of a spread effect, and the options move over to the sides. And again, as you move the character around, the options sort of follow you and reposition according to how you're moving or facing.
Now, with this character, it was a little surprising because it reminded me of the end of Back to the Future 1, where we're going, we don't need roads. This character can just go over pits and everything. And for the most part, you just go.
Yeah, that's one of the things that sets her apart, is that she can float. so she can float above water, above chasms, etc. It also, I won't say that it makes her easier to use than Ikazuchi with the red weapon, just because the aiming of her options takes a little getting used to, and knowing when and how to reposition them appropriately, depending on where you're at, can be a little tricky, but yeah. Now, her melee attack is a tree branch that she swings around. The secondary effect for her shot is similar to Pocky, except that she creates 3 mirrors on the ground. 2 that go out in front of her position and to the sides, and then 1 that goes behind her. And the cool thing is you get sort of a double whammy with those, because if her options are touching a mirror, they will do the homing shot thing, but you can also shoot her regular shots and have that do the same thing. And so you can actually get quite a lot of damage that way. And then the charge effect for her melee is the same as what Pocky has, which creates that spinning barrier around her. Her special creates a large explosion circle around her sprite. And then the red, or the fire weapon, creates a series of flaming swords that she shoots out. And her options will form up in front of her, be right next to each other. And then the green or wind weapon will move the options similar to where they were when you start with the character, and sort of in front of her and slightly to the side. And they shoot out these kind of green swords. And those have a slight homing effect. The last character, Hotaru Gozen, that's the final character in the game you can play as. And for some weird reason, Tango Project made it so that you have to play through the story mode twice to unlock this character. But she is primarily a melee character. And so she carries around a type of spear, and I can't remember what it was called. I looked it up. Actually, let me see if I can find it here. Okay. Hotaru Gozen carries this kind of sword spear combination weapon called a naginata. And so the way that works for her is that she basically just thrusts the weapon out in whatever direction you're facing. And then depending on which power-up you have, then it creates this series of air slashes, kind of, that will show up depending on the color of the power-up you have. So as you hold the attack button down, then it just continues to rapidly thrust that naginata forward.
Yeah, whenever I think of talk about this, I thought of Son Mina from Soul Calibur. The soul still burns.
Oh, sure, yeah. Now, her melee attack, she just swings the naginata around in a full circle. Her melee has much bigger range than any of the other characters, and so it's very advantageous in that sense. Her secondary attack, or the primary naginata use, is that it shoots out. It's like a bow and arrow attack. If you have the primary weapon, it's like a 3-way spread. And then the other weapons do either just a forward barrage of arrows, or a barrage of arrows with a mild homing effect. The charge attack for the melee is cool. It has Hotaru jumps into the air, swings the naginata, and then it creates this sort of copy of it that spins around and moves out in front of her character. And the cool thing about that is not only does it do damage to enemies, but it also blocks bullets. So it's very useful. The red power-up just gives her the red kind of fire spikes or whatever that lightly spread out in a random pattern, and the green power-up kind of does the same thing. Hotaru Gozen, I would say, is hard mode in the sense of this is the most difficult character to play in some sense because everything is so close quarters, and the only way to get any distance is to either tap the fire button to do that bow and arrow attack or charge the melee attack to get that spinning naginata. And so I found this character the hardest to play as and ended up being the final one that I cleared the game with. Did you unlock this character?
I did not have enough time to. I'm sorry. No, but I did end up liking the each one of them is good in situations, right? Pocky is a good all, but what's sort of funny is for a game that's titled Pocky and Rocky, the new characters seem to outshine them.
Yeah, I would say Pocky and Rocky are harder to beat the game with in free mode than either Ikazuchi or Uzume no Ame. And so it kind of, I was amused by that, that the two of the three extra characters are actually much easier to play as and offer kind of a different counterpoint to the main characters. Throughout the game, there are little boxes you can destroy to reveal power-ups and other items. Of course, I mentioned the three main power-up items: the blue, which is your default weapon, the red, and then the green power-up bubbles. And one interesting thing to note about those, a nice little touch, is that the emblem that shows up in those bubbles changes depending on which character you're playing as. And so, as Pocky, for example, you'll see the Ofuda, and as Rocky, you'll see something that's more emblematic of the leaf weapon that he uses. So that's kind of a nice touch. Sometimes you'll get cake or tea or other food items that you can use to restore some health. If memory serves, the cake restores the most, and then fruit or tea restores less. There's a green and red item that will give you another bomb in your stock. And if memory serves, you can carry up to 6 bombs or specials at any given time. There's a special talisman item that will give you a protective shield that will absorb a couple of hits before it goes away. And it sort of puts this pink and purple bubble around you. There's this little face item that will give you a jumping animal. I think it's a dog, or at least that's what I read. But you jump around on the back of this thing for a few seconds. You'll be invulnerable while you're jumping around as the animal stomps on enemies. The one thing I would say about this is be careful with this, because I don't think the game gives you much in the way of iframes once that thing disappears. So it's easy to get caught by that and then take damage. There are a couple of locations in the game that have boxes with 1-up items in them. And in particular, some of the boxes in the game are hidden and can only be revealed by using your melee attack a few times in the spot where they're hidden. A couple of prominent examples of this. In stage 1, there's a spot right before the bridge where there's this whole bunch of dudes hanging out, and there's a little cubby that you can sit behind and then attack from a distance. And in that little cubby, if you melee that spot, you'll reveal a box that will give you an extra bomb, I believe. And then in stage 2, when you face this Cyclops enemy the first time, once you defeat him, there's this house that's kind of behind him at the top of the screen, and you can go along the right side up to the side of the house and then go in, and then about, I guess it's a little bit more than halfway in to your left, you can melee and reveal a box that will give you an extra life. There are also shops throughout the game, I guess you could say, where they're usually either hiding as random animals throughout the map, or sometimes random people standing around, or as old men appearing to be begging for help. Now, as you destroy enemies, you get these coins, and the coins, of course, will allow you to buy items from these vendors. The old men, when you encounter them, if you have 300 coins, then they will always give you one up. The other vendors will provide you with what appears to be a random item, but there's an extensive post on the Shmups forum for this game in the strategy section that details out the item that you'll get based on your coin count. And so if your coin count ends with one number or another number, you'll get this item. If your count ends in this number or this number, you'll get a different item, etc. And so there is a way to kind of game the system, if you will, where if you can reach the shops or the vendors with a particular number of coins in stock, then you can manipulate which item you'll get. And there are 50 coin shop, I believe a 200 coin shop, and a 300 coin shop. Now, because the lives that you have in stock at the end of the game are worth a lot of points at the end, stocking up as many lives, of course, is important for score. The game has both a life system and a lives system. Your character can take a few hits before dying, and as with most games, you start with 3 lives. As you beat each stage, you get an additional heart added to your total. You start out with 4, and by the time you get to the final boss fight, you should have 8 total hearts available. Pocky and Rocky Reshrined plays out across 8 stages. The first 7 are standard levels with boss fights at the end, and occasionally a mid-boss in a couple of places. Stage 7 ends with a 2-stage boss fight against Black Mantle, and then against Anna Rishta, who apparently was a puppet for another evil force. Once you defeat her, then Stage 8 is strictly a boss fight against the demon Gastaroth, who has been pulling the strings the whole time, you find out.
Now, one of the things that we didn't mention here, but you sort of pick up on in this game, is there isn't, as far as I can see in here, maybe I'm wrong, maybe there is some sort of hidden time limit, but the game will try and force you to hurry along to avoid enemies when that's the last thing that you want to do, right? You want to make sure that you take your time and slow down. And you can also scroll backwards too, right? You're thinking, your mindset for most shmups would be, hey, I can only move forward. Oh, I scroll past the screen, that area no longer exists. With this game, you can go back, and in order to do better in this game, or to even make it through, you have to take your time in most cases.
Yeah.
And it's quite different than the forced scrolling that you would get from the majority of shmups.
Yeah. And one thing that I'll note is there's a strategy, because the first vendor that you come up with in stage 1 is one of the old men. But if you're just playing the game normally and taking out enemies along the way, by the time you reach that guy in the stage, you're only going to have about 100 coins or so. But there is a way to kind of milk that, because the ghosts that come down from the top of the screen or from the sides toward the beginning of the first stage will respawn if you go down the screen and then back up. And so that is the strategy. There is a time limit, but you can spend enough time to grind at the beginning of the game and get 300 coins so that when you get to that vendor, you can buy a 1-up. Throughout the story, you'll receive help from the 7 gods of fortune, though they're never actually present during the stages themselves. It just sort of plays out in the story cutscenes and stuff. And then the game's hard mode, or hard difficulty, adds revenge bullets from some enemies. So that means, of course, your melee attack becomes a lot more critical.
Yeah, there certainly is a lot of variety in the attacks on this game, and that really helps make it stand out. It's not ABC, right? You don't have your focus shot that makes you move slower. You don't have your regular shot and then your bomb. Your regular shot you can slow down, or say slow down. You can tap in order to make a secondary fire or alt mode appear. You've got your bomb. You've got your evade. There's quite a lot of options available.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, and at first I was a bit overwhelmed, particularly once I got into free mode and was trying to play as Pocky to use the mirrors, which are really handy. But it takes a little bit of getting used to that you sort of have this attack vector that you can set up, and then you still have to a lot of times dodge enemy projectiles or melee those back. And so there are definitely spots where that's trickier to use. Case in point would be the stage 4 boss, because it does this thing where it jumps and then stomps on the ground. And when it stomps on the ground, you're not doing anything except bouncing. And so you really have to be mindful of where it's going, where it's moving, so that you can stay out of the way, not get stomped on, but then also still have room to maneuver once it's done its thing.
Yeah, the other part that sort of makes you rethink things is the stage 1 boss too, right? When you defeat it, you think, "Oh, that was easy, I defeated it," but then it pulls out, this is not even my final form, and starts attacking.
Yeah, and I got caught by that a couple of times, because you defeat the boss and it drops all these coins, and so you go and collect them. Well, then its secondary form can then spawn right on top of you and do damage. One of the cool things that I didn't mention before is the dash move that I mentioned. If there are coins in your path, you will automatically collect them, or it sort of provides a vacuum effect. And so as you're dashing, coins that are in the vicinity will then rush to your character, get collected. So that's kind of a neat feature as well.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the graphics. The graphical style is very much in line with 2D Super Nintendo games, looking like an updated take on the aesthetic with a 16:9 presentation. Yeah, Tenko Project appears to have envisioned the game as something that's akin to that, along with the widescreen aspect ratio could have on the center place. What this game feels like, it almost feels like an alternate universe where the Saturn won the console wars over the PlayStation, and 2D was the future of gaming. It's really impressive to see the level of detail that you get with the sprite work, and even more impressive once you realize that this game is running in the Unity engine. I have seen some horrendous stuff in Unity, and this game is not one of those. It's very, very detail oriented, and even does so by adding in those leaves at the very beginning of the first stage.
Yeah, that's a nice effect.
The visuals in the game are clean and colorful, with bullet visibility, generally speaking, not being an issue. Character designs are in line with previous games, with a cute anime look and good detail. The interesting thing about some of these characters on here is they were brave enough to only use some of these enemy designs once. That should speak volumes on what the quality of their work. It's not just palette swaps of different enemies. Each enemy feels unique and feels natural to the place that they're. The only point where I got a little confused was the bouncing rocks that would bounce back and forth, and I think the third or maybe fourth stage, I think fourth now I think about it. But I swear those rocks have meme faces on them.
Well, they do have faces, for sure.
Yeah, I swear that they're saying me gusta.
Ah.
But yeah, everything has a well-defined look in each area. There's nothing that seemed out of place to me.
Yeah, everything everything looked very good. Everything was very well drawn, if you will, and generally well animated. And yeah, it all just looks like, you know, where you have that effect where when you play an old game,
mm-hmm.
it doesn't, you don't get the same effect like when you played it when you were a kid. Like when you played the game as a kid, the graphics looked amazing. And, you know, it was like, this is so detailed, it's not going to look any better than this. And then, of course, you go back and play it later and you realize, okay, yeah, you know, they definitely could have done more with it. This is the kind of game that makes me think of what you would envision as a child playing a pixel art game, thinking, wow, this looks so good. And I can't believe that they, you know, that my console is actually running this. And that was kind of the vibe that I got.
Yeah, there flashbacks to anyone who bought an Atari 2600 cart looking at the box art on the way home only to insert the cartridge.
Right.
I can't believe my console is only capable of this.
Right.
Oh boy, I'm sure there's I can't believe it's not better commercial in there somewhere, or parody.
I can't believe it's not Pixels.
Yes. There you go. So are we going to talk about the controversy?
Sure.
There was a slight controversy with Ame no Uzume's character sprite being slightly modified or censored in the Western release to cover the cleavage.
Yeah.
It is what it is at this point. I mean, the only point I remember where there was that much of a cover-up in video games was Nom 1975. Do you remember that? There was for a long time it was easy to get a cheap AES copy of Nom 1975, but on every copy that they came from, that people were grabbing, it had black marker over the cleavage.
Oh,
because
right.
it had to be censored in that country. So I think that's the only other time I've seen something like this with it, where people got upset.
Right. And I mean, there are more egregious instances of censorship. This one doesn't bother me that much, but I understand why people were upset. You know, it's like, leave the game alone kind of a thing. So it's whatever.
Yeah, it didn't kill my enjoyment either way. So
nope.
All right, so since you've had a long section here, we'll move on to the sound here. The music is fitting for the game and generally pleasant. It also sounds as if it follows on the Super Nintendo games to an extent and doesn't do a lot of extra that might not have been possible on extra consoles. So it maintains more of a chiptune spirit with additional flourishes or embellishments. Sound effects are generally nice, with fun touches here and there, and sounds are appropriate for the era the game is trying to invoke. Yeah, there's nothing. I wouldn't go rush out and buy the soundtrack, but nothing feels out of place here. Right? We don't have the best of the mosquito singers here. Everything fits.
Yeah, I'm struck a little bit because I'm torn. I generally enjoy the soundtrack while I'm playing the game, but as a connoisseur of shmup soundtracks, and noting, of course, that this game is a bit more shmup adjacent than a pure shmup, but this is one of those I remember whistling or humming while I'm streaming, but then when I turn the game off, I don't remember it as well, outside of maybe the stage 1 theme, just because I heard it so much. But, yeah, the music doesn't stand out to me as much in this game as I maybe would have liked, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It definitely is fitting and works with the game well, which of course is what it's intended to do.
Yeah, it's just not going to have you burning your own mixtape like Guru Mix Volume 1. It's just all Dragon Force and Metal Squad.
Right.
So let's talk about scoring. Score. All right. The keys to scoring in the game are not taking hits, since your hearts left at the end of the stage are tallied up for points, as well as picking up extra power-ups when you're at max level power, picking up additional shields when you still have one active, and so on and so forth. The biggest point bonuses come from your stock of lives at the end of the game, with each life being worth 50,000 points.
Yes, so don't die.
Who would have thought? You know, that's the same thing that I follow with Dark Souls, Demon Souls, Elden Ring. Don't die and get good.
Get good, scrub.
All right, let's move on to thoughts from the Shoot the Corecast community. We'll start off with Desolus. I'm excited for this one. I've had it sitting here waiting for an excuse for quite a while now. I've only ever dabbled in the Super Nintendo version. Ground my way up to stage 5 tonight. It's taken a little bit to get a handle on the controls while juggling all the character variations, but I think it's starting to sink in. Definitely challenging. I like it though. There's a slider in the display section for aspect ratio. It's turned up to 112 by default on Switch. Not sure if the other versions. It stretches it to fit widescreen. I found that reducing this back down to 100% makes things look better. Yeah, looks like they set it to go. That's one of the things I didn't do because I was playing. I'll have to do this and take a look. I was always playing at 120%.
Yeah, I never messed with that, so I guess it didn't make any difference to me. But I suppose if you put it at 100%, instead of the stretched image, you get the sharp pixels.
Well, that's just how much you're giving us, 120%.
Huh.
Later post by him, finished up the story tonight and had a few attempts in free mode before getting 1cc on normal. With Ikazuchi, the Seeking Lightning Attack Red Orb is incredibly strong and melts through bosses. I know some directional weirdness to it first, but more so just on the diagonals. I adjusted to it by holding direction slightly longer before moving to neutral. I need to go back and observe some more, but I think what might be happening is that direction may only change after previous character animation is finished. If that's the case, I think that would track with the kind of more deliberate movement I've seen in the more recent game Shadow the Ninja Reborn. I still have a character to unlock somehow. Maybe it requires a hard mode clear? That must have been the double unlock, or beat the game twice.
Yep.
Thankfully, they didn't pull in a Ghosts and Goblins, right? You got to beat the game twice, and you must have the shield item at the end.
Right.
I think I may want to tackle clears with each character. Ikazuchi certainly seems like the easiest to get it done with, given the abilities. The homing on the lightning attack lets you latch onto something and focus on positioning alone, which was very helpful. Not having forced scrolling lets you backtrack in some areas and reposition too. Pocky and Ragi 1cc down. GG, sir. A bit more challenging with the lower damage potential. Bosses actually have a chance to fight back this time. Got the Rocky and Yuzumi normal clears as well. The last character is unlocked by playing through the story mode a second time, normal or hard difficulty. I fell a lot harder than I thought I would at first. Once you get a layout for the stages, you can pretty much just swap characters at will and still do fine. And they have unique things about them, but they are similar enough to carry over some of the basic strategies. Yuzumi has a worst aim positioning time. Her attack animation is slower. I ended up liking Rocky a lot more than I thought I would too. He's up there power-wise along with Ikazuchi and has a special attack that lets him strafe while firing, which is very useful. The story serves its purpose as kind of introduction to the cast and abilities. You want to do it twice so you can unlock Hotaru, though. I've got 3 more characters to run through hard mode, but still decide to take a break and focus on Espeleta 2 a little. I'm late to the party as that is already am. I don't think it's worth going for 1cc in story mode, at least not at the start. Once you get a few runs in free mode and get your head wrapped around the stages and the character power variations, it's very doable. Hotaru is awesome as well. It's definitely worth the second story clear. If I could recommend one thing that helps me a ton on my playthrough, it would be never skimp on extends from the old drunken dudes. I take that out of context. Never skimp. One thing I learned from shmups is never skimp on the extends from the old drunken dudes. I don't usually spend money on anything unless I need a power level boost. I really like the way Hotaru plays. Her melee deflect attack is a stronger, larger side too, and what a fun change of pace. I enjoyed this one quite a bit. I never did get around to the last 3 hard mode runs I need to do. Dragon Quest 3 and Espeleta 2 ate up all that time. Well, I have no qualms with that. I could see how that could do.
Yeah, Desolate's really dug in, which was cool to see. Ihaz joined in and said, I've had my eye on it for ages, so maybe this will finally push me into picking it up. It does seem like they made some really bizarre design decisions with the game, though. Like, it's my understanding that you can't play co-op until you beat the game, which is a mind-boggling decision. I would agree. Later on, Ihaz said, after playing this, I'm even more impressed at how quickly Desolus got those 1cc's, currently struggling on stage 2. LOL, these bamboo sprout enemies can F right off. Managed to barely scrape together a stage 2 clear. For that octopus water gun attack, do you have to melee it to avoid? Oh, whoa, stage 3 is where you get some new moves. Yeah, in the story mode. Just to comment on that, that octopus water gun attack was the bane of my existence for the first part of the game, because that was nasty. It wasn't until this run I figured out how the power-ups actually work. I kept swapping between them and staying at low power. Now I'm trying to figure out when I should be using melee versus firing. Like for those bamboo sprouts, I found melee is easier. On my level 2 Rocky Rhine, I thought red was the best. The cards seem like the worst. Seems like the free play is the true game, quote unquote, as Mark MSX likes to say. The pixel art in this game is truly stellar. Ihaz later said, I'm guessing the extra heart you get at the end really come in handy for those 1cc runs. Indeed they do. Indeed they do. Whoa, I need to finish story mode and unlock free. I got to the final boss and then was a bit frustrated at the checkpoint and took a break. And then, in response to some discussion in the Discord, ooh, I don't know if I've ever triggered those old dudes. I've done the animals that give you weapons. Sounds like you need a certain amount of gold for the old dude thing to work. Yep. Later on, I've yet to develop the urge to return to this and finish the story mode. I've tried a few times and just sort of groaned and closed the game. That may be all she wrote for me and this game this month. We'll see if I end up finishing the story mode before the end of the month. I'm currently on the final checkpoint before the final boss, or what I assume is the final boss. I've got a handful of days off coming up for Thanksgiving. I'll try and sit down and clear it one of those days. And then for final thoughts, finally sat down last night and finished story mode. I had a lot of other gaming stuff I wanted to get done over the vacation I had, but I did end up getting this clear. So now, when I come back to it, I can actually play free mode and co-op and stuff. I don't know if I'll even try to do a 1cc free mode run. I've just got a lot of games on the docket right now. For some reason, my backlog came calling me, and I picked up Ys 8 again and have been enjoying that. Definitely a game that I enjoyed, but stopping story mode for a bit was a mistake. I feel like it's really easy to get rusty with this game, as it has a pretty unique skill set that I don't think a lot of other series have. it was pretty rough and unfun picking up story mode pretty much right before the final boss. Definitely a game that I think would shine more in free mode. I'll play some, but likely won't go for a 1cc of it anytime soon. But I think just going level to level is the way. And I would tend to agree. I think the game opens up in free mode.
Yeah, the other interesting point that it brings up is most shmups aren't going to have you attacking on diagonals, right?
Right.
Most shmups are going to have you either firing back or under your enemy. So it definitely takes some getting used to be firing at diagonal. And I think that's part of the reason why the attract mode for the game shows you the first stage boss with them attacking diagonals, so that way they can quickly roll or dash out of the way.
Yeah, that's a good point. I definitely struggled with the diagonal some, so that is a factor.
Yeah, I feel like there's a Dr. Strangelove in there, joke in there somewhere. I learned to stop worrying.
And embrace
love
the
diagonals. All right, Master Who says, it looks like my local library has a copy that's available for rent on the Switch, so I'll be scooping up this weekend. Well, hopefully you enjoyed your time with the copy. Hopefully you're able to play it.
Yep, Master Who following in your footsteps.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I cannot stress enough. Your local library is more than just books. There is tons of stuff out there. I regularly get PS5 and Switch stuff all the time from my local library. The biggest worry that I have is all these consoles going digital next generation, with the exception of the Switch 2, and I won't be able to try out games and see if they're worth buying from the local library anymore.
Yep.
If it comes down to that, I'm just gonna continue going on with Steam. I'd rather take a shot on a 90 or 95% discount game than spend something 100% or roll the dice on a PSN or a Xbox store game. I think that Steam and Nintendo are probably the two service providers where I feel comfortable buying from their eShops. I expect them to be at least around for enough. Now, Nintendo, of course, they shut down the. That's to say that they shut down the Wii Shop and they shut down the eShop, and they're known to. But at least they give people enough notice on there, right? It's not just something that happens. And Steam has been around for such a long time, and I like the ability to. They're a lot more forward thinking and allowing a family to share the same games.
Right.
So if my son's playing something on Steam, even though if I'm offline, I can still play games that I purchased and have installed locally. So just speaking for myself, that works out well. But yeah, a local library is a great way to try out different games. Yeah, so definitely check yours out. You might be surprised.
Yep. Scoush jumped in and said, great excuse to play this game. Had it a while, but not started playing it yet. I've not had time to do the last few monthly games, so hopefully I'll get back involved with this. Well, it took a continue to get through stage 1. Gonna be a tough one, this. Might have to look at replays early to get an idea, cause I must be doing something wrong.
Sorry, my scroll wheel decided to go. I said all of a sudden I was at the end. Here we go. Mr. Vestile says, so game's kind of annoying, but I think I'll get a handle on it soon enough. Well, hopefully you did, sir.
Yeah. Red Demon said, someone succeeded at playing with this with the arcade stick / joystick on PC. There's only a button working as start, nothing else for me. It really is a problem in the game. Had the same with Cotton Reboot. Resolved it, but forgot how to. There was something in the config file that had to be added. And there was some additional discussion on this, and I believe Red Demon got the issue figured out eventually. But yeah, definitely one of the weird things that can happen when you play these games on PC. If the controller mapping that the developers put in doesn't quite match up with whatever controller you want to use, then yeah, weirdness can definitely crop up.
Yeah, Cotton Reboot was especially annoying with that. That's why I switched over to the Switch version or the PS4 when we played that. I didn't know about the config file, so this is new to me, but it was just try out. Like, no, I am not gonna keep pressing X all the time in order to shoot. Yeah, even now, bad memories. All right, yeah. Moving on. Super Oven. So says I'm going to be back and forth on how I feel about the controls in this game. On one hand, the game keeps the arcade challenge by making sure the player cannot move inconsistently in a particular direction without moving towards it, that is. But I wonder is this actually for the best? For example, in a recent game UFO 50 called Elzvar's Hat, it shows a very similar general mechanical system with a crucial difference. You can hold down fire and continue shooting that direction while strafing. And certainly this makes the game easier in a sense, but it also feels more like how a game like this should control, in my opinion. What's gained by making sure the player cannot strafe and fire? Maybe there's some interesting positioning puzzles from the bosses and enemy placements. When I walk through the mechanics in my mind, most of the bosses would play out more or less the same way if they control like Elzvar's Hat, albeit with a little less fiddliness. One interesting note on this topic is that the original arcade version of Kiki Kai Kai, most enemies are one-shot popcorn. I feel this makes a lot more sense, and the control type allows the player to aim more smoothly. I think when they made the enemies more tanky for the console version, it restructuralized the shooting mechanics in an awkward way. That's definitely an interesting take. I didn't have a chance to play too much of the arcade version. For some reason, the original promo for Kiki Kai Kai with the fish racing the taxi sticks in my head. If you look it up on YouTube, the promo for Kiki Kai Kai. But I definitely think that this is, because it is sort of a reimagining of the Super Nintendo game, that's why they went with it. If it was a proper sequel, it maybe have a little bit more going to it. It's sort of where you got to do enough to please the fan base of the older game, but then you want to add new stuff. It's really a hard line to walk, and they have to draw the line somewhere. And no matter what, you're going to be ending up making someone mad. And as I mentioned earlier, I myself had a why can't Metroid crawl? Why can't I just play this twin stick? But then I realized that's not how the previous games played. It's not how these are the original developers coming back, and they're saying, hey, what if we took and made it like the original Super Nintendo game, but then we spice things up? And what you get, it mentioned, whereas the Kiki and Kai Kai as character, Pocky and Rocky. as characters sort of get overshadowed by these newer characters, so it's a really hard line to walk, and I'm just not sure, unless they really broke and made this into a full sequel that had no ties to the previous game, if they could have done that. It may have been, that may be a better way to go about it, I don't know, but it's interesting. As long as they're walking this line of calling it Reshrined, then they have to keep at least some of the familiar mechanics.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. And finally, Eat Electric Death says, man, the month just blew by and I barely got playtime with Pocky and Rocky. Beat the first few stages at least. Liked what I played a lot, though. Just was too busy and tired or stressed this month for anything that requires concentrating. Mostly, I just mindlessly grinded Warrior Orochi 3. Well, thanks to everyone who played along and for sharing your thoughts. I didn't calculate the high scores this time because we didn't really have much in the way of score submissions, and so I just didn't bother with that.
Fair enough. One of the things that I have to say about this game is it's one of those rare things where it's accessible to get into for people who don't generally play shmups. It's definitely a hard game. That is certainly true, but it's not so hard that you can't overcome it, right? This is not Gradius 3 Arcade. This is not a beatdown every 5 seconds. It's definitely something that will seem daunting at first, but the more you get used to the flow of the game, the more you play it, the more you'll get out of it. Different people are still going to have different ways, and some people find the game maybe too hard, some people won't, but it's certainly one of the more accessible shmup likes out there. And that also rings true for the price, right? Whether you get for free at your local library or you get on Amazon. I mean, currently on Amazon, the Switch version is $23, and the PS4 is $20. Compared to some of the stuff that we're playing earlier in there, this is the absolute steal. And the Tingle project has really come into their own and started to produce more and more great games with some of the original developers on board. We mentioned they start on the 360. They start cutting their teeth on Ninja Warriors Return, then moved up to Wild Guns Reloaded, and then of course the Pocky and the Rocky that we're talking about. But then Shadow the Ninja. I mean, Shadow the Ninja is almost universally praised.
Right.
People, so I'm curious to see what they do next, and I hope that they get a chance to make another Pocky and Rocky game. I think that there's enough here show that maybe they could do. They don't necessarily have to go Pocky and Rocky 2. And they could do. I mentioned is update the control screen. Update the control scheme a little bit, and maybe give Metroid the ability to crawl with dual stick, or to give you the option to strafe and fire at the same time, right? So make it sort of an easy mode or something, or maybe make it the control schemes as you got to pay money for them. This seems to be the way that they went, but it's something that I'm hoping that they definitely continue, because they have skills. I have not seen the Unity engine do some of this amazing stuff. They're talking about with the sprite work and the details. That's really hard to do in the Unity engine. There are definitely some areas for improvement, such as to have local co-op there right from the start, if you can, which may be a tough draw at this point. Online co-op, we'll see, but to have definitely, I'm looking forward to seeing what they do next, and I'm hoping that we see another Pocky and Rocky game by them. They have certainly earned it with this one. This game is not perfect, but it's very accessible, and it's really cheap to get into. So I would definitely recommend it for people who are even shmup curious.
Yeah, this is one that I was initially very frustrated with, because the sort of overhead run and gun formula is one that I'm less familiar with, less good at. And so coming at the game initially, the story mode, I kind of struggled in the story mode when I first started playing. And it didn't take me that long to get through it. Once free mode opened up, then yeah, like I said, that really opens up the game. And then you can truly explore the game mechanics to their fullest. And put the game through its paces. That's where I feel like this game really shines. And the variety in the characters is also nice because it really gives you a lot to work with. You can find a character that works really well with your playstyle, or you can challenge yourself and go with a character that doesn't really work for you that well, and see, how you can do, whether or not you can clear or just how far in the game you can reach. So it's one that I kind of turned around on pretty quickly once I got into free mode and was actually able to really dive in. I did definitely express some frustration, and you could see on my streams that I was struggling here and there. There are some cheap moments where it feels like it's almost impossible to not take damage, but I know there are people who have no-missed this game, so it's possible. It's just not an easy feat. But yeah, despite my initial misgivings and my occasional frustration with this game, I actually did enjoy it quite a bit. And as I was playing through the month, after I finished the story mode, I did go back and I cleared the game with all 5 characters. So obviously I enjoyed it enough to put in the kind of time to really get that much out of it. I did not clear on hard mode because revenge bullets, no thank you. I did play a little bit on hard mode to check it out and make sure that I could see that. But yeah, I don't know that I would want to put the time into the hard mode to clear, or that I would want to try and master the game, so to speak, by trying to no miss. A couple of the boss fights are very finicky in that sense. The stage 4 boss is hard. The stage 5 boss is hard. Because of the way that it moves, it's kind of hard to avoid damage in the stage because the boss throws out these flames at you, and then there's also little fires on the ground burning. And so in order to avoid the flames from the boss, you have to use the dash move, but then it's easy to dash right into the other flames. And so it can be a little bit hard to navigate in that sense, but realistically, aside from a few minor issues like that, I rather enjoyed this title, and yeah, I would agree that I would like to see Tango Project tackle this again, whether they do a direct sequel to this and continue to innovate, or if they do something creative like doing kind of what they did here by reimagining the second game. Because I think, if I remember correctly, the second game is a little bit less always action and maybe a little bit more adventure. And so that would be kind of different, I guess, for them to try and do that. But anyway, I like this game more than I think I thought I would initially, and certainly more than I thought. It clicked with me more than I thought it was going to. So I'm definitely glad we played it, and look forward to seeing what Tango Project does next.
Yeah, I think that was my biggest sentiment as well. Is I thought, okay, I'm going to try this out. We'll see what happens. But then, like, actually, I sort of like this. It's it's hard, sure, but it's reasonable hard. It's definitely. And the more I play it, the more I liked it. But it's not perfect, but it's definitely a good game. And again, if it's something, it's easy to recommend. You don't have to be going, okay, you have to know how to no miss, here's how you route this, here's what ship you pick. It doesn't require all of the technical terms, the technicalities, the knowing how to deal with the shmup and how to approach it. It's definitely helpful if you have that, but it's not a requirement for this. And I think leaving that type of baggage behind creates a pretty enjoyable experience. Yeah,
I would agree.
All right. Well, now that we've left our baggage here in 2024, we are starting off with Sylphid for January 2025, followed by Razion EX. And so everybody head to the eShop.
Yeah,
I'm sorry?
Yeah, the physicals for Razion EX are long gone now, so if you weren't fortunate enough to grab one, then yeah, you'll have to go to the eShop.
That's what I'm wondering, like, how expensive are the physicals for Raz? Because I think that's one of the ones where it went up more than you would expect.
Yeah, I think so. I haven't priced it.
Oh yeah, $170 for just a regular one. Yeah.
Woo.
Yeah, well, to be fair, it used to be like 200 something, so I guess that's progress. Buy it on the eShop. That's what I'm going to do. I've got a copy sitting around here, and I'm not going to open it up for this. I'm just going to buy on the eShop. It'll be so much more accessible.
Right.
So, look forward to that. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for playing through. Sorry things were a little late. I ran into some family and health-related stuff, which just backed up everything on there. Thankfully, everything has, for the most part, settled itself out now. So, I also like to thank Etrem for the logo, I almost called him Ed209. Sir Flash, whatever he wants to be called at this point. Thank you very much, sir. To thank Kogosu for the intro and outro music, everyone at the Playcast and Collector Cast, and like to thank MetalFRO for him and his parrot dogs keeping things going and interesting. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Well, as we'll find out on the next episode, I didn't get to stream that much for the next game, but I'm hoping to get back to the more regular schedule for the month of January and have more streams.
Sounds good to me. Thank you, everybody. We really appreciate everyone playing along, as well as the feedback. It's always good to read comments and to hear, like, even reading about comments about strafing and hey, this doesn't work in this is the way it was in Kiki Kaikai, and they changed it for Pocky and Rocky. Always learning new stuff, and appreciate everyone's input and jokes, even if they're at my expense. So thank you very much.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, with that, I guess we'll close up for now. I'll say thank you all for listening, and we will catch you again next time.